Hello, welcome to our videos on Java. Java is a high-level programming language, one that is able to be used for many programming purposes. It is highly accessible and fairly simple to use. So to follow along with our course and explanations, you can download BlueJ. And this is where we'll be doing our coding on. And this is considered to be an IDE, a place where we can compile our code on. So this is the website bluej.org where you can download BlueJ. And if you're Windows, you can start the installation here, Mac here, and other here. So after you've installed BlueJ, you can open it up and you'll be sent to this page. So the first thing that we'll do is create a new project. And I'm already on one, but let's just create a new one. Welcome to Java. And let's just make it lowercase. Yeah. So welcome to Java. So now we've created a project. So now within projects, we can create what are known as classes. And to do that, it's a right click and then new class, and then you can name it whatever you want, but beware that you don't use numbers as your first character or capital letters. So let's just call it welcome. And that's how you create a class within BlueJ. So now, whenever we open up this class, we can see that there's a bunch of starter code. And whenever we get further into our course, you'll understand why it comes with this already built-in pre-code. But where we'll be programming for now, it won't be in this class, so let's just X out of this. What we'll usually do is have a tester class, and the way that we create it is, again, you can call it anything you want. So welcome to Java tester as tester class. And again, you'll be faced with a lot of precursoring code, but you can just delete it. And in order to actually start programming, you have to type in public static void main, and then in parentheses string, and then brackets, and then args, then curly brackets, and then let's put a couple indents. And within this highlighted section is where our code will go. So now let's actually talk about how we run the code within Java. So if you just go back to the main menu, first let's just click compile to make sure there's no errors, which obviously there aren't because there's no red lines. If you go back here and you right click on this and you see void main string args, if you click that and just OK, don't put anything in the parentheses, but if you just put OK, it should run some code. But right now, if we look within our class, there's nothing to run. So let's change that. So there are two main ways to do this. So first, let's do the first way, system.out.print. And then we put a parenthesis and then a quote, and we put whatever phrase that we want. So in this case, hello world. And then let's put an ending parenthesis and a quote and a semicolon at the end. In Java, most lines of code at the end have a semicolon. And let's click compile and close it. And let's run it. And as you can see, we get hello world within our console. Now, one thing that's pretty helpful is if you go to options and click clear screen at method call, it'll actually make our output a lot cleaner so we don't see our output from previous runs. But now let's go back and let's try to say something else. System.out.print, and let's say I like apples. So now if we compile it and then run it again, we see that there's no space between the two outputs and it's kind of merged together. So the way that we can fix this, or the way that Java programmers have produced to fix this, is there's something called print and then there's something called println. So now let's take a look at an example of what ln does. So if we do system.out.println, compile it, and then run it, we get a space, a whole indent in the lines. So that's the difference between system.out.println and print. After println will put an indent on the cursor after the line, and print will not. All right, so just to reiterate, this won't technically be real code, but I'm just demonstrating what the output would supposedly be. So we have hello world here, and we have I like apples. Ignore the red squiggly lines. So I like apples. So if I got rid of the print ln here, the output would become like this. Now let's say I put the print ln here. After this code is done executing, it'll put the cursor on the next line after it's already done running. But let's say again, I put print ln here, then it would be hello world, I like apples, and then that's the end of that line, and then I'll go to the next line, and I like apples, and then the cursor will be at the end, and for the next line, the cursor will be automatically indented to the next line. All right, so let's go over some examples to make sure that we really understand the concept. So I cut the video and just wrote out the code to save some time, but this is our first example. So let's try to figure out what it would output, and then we'll compare our answers. So again, ignore the squiggly lines that are going to pop up, but my favorite color is, and we can see that it's not a print ln, it's just a print. So let's type it out. My favorite color is, and then there will be no indent after this to the next line because it's not print ln. So we just go to the next line and it's red. And again, that's not print ln, so it'll stay on that same line. And now we get what about you? And now it's important to realize that it is print ln, so we'll go to the next line. And then the response for the last line is blue, so we'll get blue, and then a period, and then a space. And this is print ln, so our cursor will go to the next line. So let's comment out this piece of code. So to do that within Java, it's just double slashes. And the purpose of comments within programming are so that it makes code more readable. So the computer won't be able to read it, but us as the programmer can. And it allows us to have insight on what we're doing at a specific block of code. So now let's compile our code and then run it and see if our two outputs match. So this is our output that we get from our piece of code, and it looks very similar to what we predicted it to be. So that's case scenario one completed. All right, so here's our example number two, and let's just get straight into it of how it would output. So first we have system.out.println, my favorite sport is. So we can rule that as my favorite sport is, and then since it's println, it has to indent, and then the next line of code says basketball, and it's println, so it has an indent. Then what about you? And it has an indent, so we go to the next line, and then it says baseball. And then lastly, baseball also is println, so it has an indent. So our cursor will end up there. So now let's comment out our piece of code, and let's compile it. Let's go back to the home page, and let's run it. And that's very similar to what we predicted it to be. So that's case scenario number two done. All right, let's look at our third and final example. So first, it's system.out.println, my favorite fruit is. So my favorite fruit is. Then since it's println, we have an indent. And then we have apples. And there's no println, so it'll stay on the same line. And then we have a space and bananas. And then that's println, so we go to the next line. And then we have a question saying, how about you? Now let's comment out our piece of code. And now let's compile our code and let's run it. And as we can see, that is exactly what we predicted. So thank you. That was scenario number three. And thank you for watching this short introduction on BlueJ, as well as how we can use the console and system.out and system.println within Java. So thank you.